ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांतिः। ओम सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषः सहस्राक्षः सहस्रपात् स भूमिं विश्वतो भृत्वा अत्यतिष्ठद्दशाङ्गुलम् पुरुष ये वेदगुं सर्वं यद्भूतं यच्च भव्यम् उतामृतत्वस्येषा नः यदन्नेनातिरोहति एतावानस्य महिमा अतो ज्यायागश्च पूरुषः पादोऽस्य विश्वा भूतानि त्रिपादस्यामृतं दिवि त्रिपादूर्ध्व उदैः पुरुषः पादोऽस्येहा भवात् पुनः ततो विश्वं व्यक्रामत् शासनानशने अभि तस्माद्विराडजायत विराजो अधिपूरुषः स जातो अत्यरिच्यत पश्चात् भूमिमथो पुरः यत्पुरुषेण हविषा देवा यज्ञमतन्वत वसन्तो अस्यासीदाज्यं ग्रीष्म इद्मः शरद्धविः सप्तास्यासन् परिधयः त्रिस्सप्त समिधः कृताः देवा यद्यज्ञन्तन्वानाः अबध्नन् पुरुषं पशुं तं यज्ञं बर्हिषि प्रोक्षन् पुरुषं जातमग्रतः तेन देवा अयजन्त साध्या ऋषयश्च ये तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः संभृतं पृषदाज्यं पशुगस्तागश्चक्रे वायव्यान् आरण्यान् ग्राम्याश्च ये तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः ऋचः सामानि जज्ञिरे छन्दागुंसि जज्ञिरे तस्मात् यजुस्तस्मादजायत तस्मादश्वा अजायन्त ये केचोभयादतः गावो हजज्ञिरे तस्मात् तस्माज्जाता अजावयः यत्पुरुषं व्यदधुः कतिधा व्यकल्पयन् मुखं किमस्य कौ बाहु काभूरूपादावुच्येते ब्राह्मणोऽस्य मुखमासीत् बाहुराजन्यः कृतः ऊरू तदस्य यद्वैश्यः पद्भ्यागुं शूद्रो अजायत चंद्रमा मनसो जातः चक्षुः सूर्यो अजायत मुखादिन्द्रश्चाग्निश्च प्राणाद्वायुरजायत नाभ्या आसीदन्तरिक्षं शीर्ष्णोद्यौ समवर्तत पद्भ्यां भूमिर्दिशः श्रोत्रात् तथा लोकागुम् अकल्पयन् वेदाहमेतं पुरुषं महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसस्तु पारे सर्वाणि रूपाणि विचित्य धीरः नामानि कृत्वाभिवदन् यदास्ते धाता पुरस्ताद्यमुदा जहार शक्रः प्रविद्वान् प्रदिशश्चतस्रः तमेवं विद्वान् अमृत इह भवति नान्यः पन्था अयनाय विद्यते. So we saw up to the 13th rig. So here the Srishti is being talked about. Already we saw that this Virat Purusha only became everything. So the Devas and the Rishis, who were the first bonds, you can say, from the Virat Purusha, they did this yajna, Manasika yajna, okay, because they didn't have any other samagri, they have not yet been created. So in that Manasika yajna, mental karma only, visualization you can say, they sacrifice the Purusha, the Virat Purusha, as an offering into the yajna they are doing. And from that yajna only all the other things were born. Means the Virat Purusha himself has become everything, because Virat Purusha only was offered into the yajna as the offering, and from that all these things are coming, correct? We saw that tasmat yajnat sarva utaha sambhritam prishadajyam. So again from the yajna itself, whatever is required to do yajna, all those things are coming first. Okay, so the ghee and curds, and then different types of animals, whether they are flying animals or those living in the forest or in the domesticated animals. And also Rig, Yajur, Sama, the Vedas themselves are coming from that, different portions of the Veda which are used again to do the yajna. Even all the chandas. Now chandas means again it's the upalakshana for all other Vedangas also, because there are 6 Veda angas are there, correct? Siksha, Kalpam, Niruktam, Vyakaranam, Chandas and Jyotisha. All these things also came from that. Along with that, you have to include all Itihasa, Purana, all our disciplines of knowledge, they all came from this yajna only. So also specifically certain animals which are useful in the yajna. Ashva Ajayanta, because Ashwamedha is supposed to be the greatest karma. So Ashva is there. Then all other animals similar to Ashwa, like donkeys and those which have 2 rows of teeth, Ubhayadataha. Then the cows. So Gavo Ha Jagnire Tasmat. So even cows came from that. The Hakara is there. Ha is a particle which is generally used for Ascharya or Harsha, like great joy or surprise. Okay. So why, in fact, in one commentary, they have gone into detail why this ha is there only after the cows. Like that, one vichara is there. That is because they are saying all the cow and its progeny, correct? Cows and bulls. They are the main reason why this entire world is there, it seems. Because the cow's milk only is used in all the yajna, correct? The milk, curds, and then the whatever ghee we get from that. That is very important. Without that, you can't do any yajna. Similarly, the bulls are useful for agriculture, and from that only all the dhanya, whatever we are using havis, whether it is rice or all other type of grains. So the bulls are useful for that. So the cows and bulls only give us all the things which we require. And cows also give you gobar, from which we make this cow dung cakes, correct? That they are also useful as fuel. So cows are the basis for our entire culture, in fact, entire way of life. So hers is there in after the cows. So that particle is meaningful for cows, like that. There is a commentary is there, interesting. So cows also came, and also goats, avayaha, sheep, etc. Again, goats are also actually sacrificed in some of the Vaidika rituals. So they are also connected to the yajna. Then this Purusha, so all the things which are required to do the yajna themselves came from this Manasika yajna. Okay. And also the people who are supposed to do all this yajna, they have to be there, correct? The Chatur Varna. So Varna Srishti also was explained here in the form of a question answer, because first this 12th rik is more like a question, correct? How did this Purusha was envisioned or visualized by all these rishis and these devas, initially those who are doing this srishti further, how did they visualize? How is the face, or what is there in the face? What is the shoulder and arms? What are there in the thighs and in the feet? Like that. First one question. And then Brahmanaha asya mukhamasit. The Brahmanas or the face, or they were born out of the face. From the shoulders and arms came the Rajanyaha, Kshatriyas. Then from the thighs came the Vaishyaha, Uru Tadasya Vaishyaha, Padbhyam, Shudraha Jayata. From the feet, the Shudras came like this. The Varna Shrishti is talked about here. Now, this Varnashrama Dharma is the basis for duties. Understand that in our Vaidika society, in the Vedic vision, everybody has duties. In fact, no one has any rights. All of us have only duties. But if one does one's duty properly, everybody else will get their rights. That is the vision. So we are a duty-oriented society. And why duties are stressed so much? Also, we have to understand. Because by doing one's duty only, one can become successful. Okay. In fact, doing your duty itself is a worship to the Lord. That's what Lord Krishna says. Swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. Yatah pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam. Swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. So from whom? Yatah pravrittir bhutanam. Bhutanam pravritihi yataha yasmat. From whom all these beings have come. By whom everything is pervaded. That being, that Purusha, because we are having Purusha Sukta here, we can say Purusha also. We worship Abhyarchya, Tam Abhyarchya. How? Swakarmana, by doing one's own karma, one's own duty. You gain Siddhi, Siddhim Vindati Manavaha, human beings gain success. So by doing one's duty only, one gains success. So what is our vision of success? Is very important to understand. What do we call success? Because this idea of success itself is a problem nowadays. Everybody is thinking that fulfilling one's own desires means I am successful. If I am able to get whatever I like, if I am able to avoid whatever I dislike, then I am successful. But this idea of success itself is leading to a lot of psychological problems, depression, etc. Why? Because our very nature, by our very nature, we are all limited. Our knowledge is limited. Our power is limited. The resources we have is limited. There are so many unknown variables. So how much ever effort you put in, you don't know how the results will be, because there are many unknown variables. That being the case, nobody can fulfill all their desires. If you are having the criteria that fulfilling one's own likes and dislikes, okay, getting whatever you like, avoiding whatever you dislike, that alone is success. Like that, if you have a criteria, nobody is a success. Understand that. Nobody can be successful. In fact, if you think back even in your own life, all the things which you desired for and what you have actually got, more than 90% of the things you wouldn't have got. That means everybody is a failure. You are in fact setting yourself up for failure by having such a criteria. Okay, so that is not our vision. The Vedic vision of success is what? you should be able to manage your likes and dislikes. If you are able to manage your likes and dislikes, then you are successful. Why should I be managing my likes and dislikes? If you ask, if you do not manage your likes and dislikes, your likes and dislikes will manage you. So you will become a slave of your own desires, likes and dislikes. That is not very pleasant. In fact, most people are like that. If one is a slave of one's own likes and dislikes, then you are ready to do anything to fulfill your likes and dislikes. You are ready to do even adharma. So if you are ready to do adharma to fulfill your likes and dislikes, then it is no more kama. That's what becomes lobha. It is not a desire anymore. It becomes greed. When does desire become greed? Desire becomes greed when you are ready to do wrong things to achieve whatever is your likes and to avoid whatever is your dislike. And if your desires are not fulfilled, then it leads to pain, suffering, anger. So desire only becomes krodha also. Desire only becomes lobha, greed. And whatever you desire, if it is there with somebody else, correct? Then what happens? Jealousy, okay? Kama, krodha. Desire becomes anger, can become anger if it is not fulfilled. And desire itself, if intense desire is there, it can become greed if you are ready to do wrong, lobha. And desire, whatever you desire, if it is there with somebody else, it becomes jealousy. Correct? Matsarya, asuya, like that we call in Sanskritam. Then there are other things are also there. Pride and delusion. So these things are all talked about as 6 enemies of oneself. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. So even if your desire is fulfilled and you have something, you can have pride because of that. Correct? And due to your desire, you can also be deluded. Your attachment to something deludes your judgment. You are not able to judge what is right and wrong properly. Or even though you know what is right and wrong, you are not able to do the right thing. You are not free enough to do the right thing. See, freedom itself again is understood wrongly. Freedom means what people think. I can do anything. That is freedom. Correct. You can do anything. But are you really free? If you do something wrong, let us say, and you call yourself free, means you are not really free. Why? Because why did you do something wrong even though you knew what is right and wrong? Because you are not free, in fact, really. Because you are a slave of your own likes and dislikes. You are pressured by your likes and dislikes to do something wrong, even though you know what is right and what is wrong. Nobody can claim ignorance. Understand that. As a human being, we are all born with an understanding of Samanya Dharma. What we call universal values. We are all born with an understanding of universal values because we all know what we want, at least, correct? 50% of the time we are all dharmic. How? With reference to what we want from others, we know what is dharma. Nobody should tell lie to me. Nobody should hurt me. Everybody should be kind towards me. Correct? So your expectation from others, how they should behave, you are very clear. You also know that they also expect the same thing. So you also have to then do the same thing. You have to be truthful. You have to be non-hurting. You have to be kind, compassionate. Now these universal values are all known to everyone. But of course, universal values may not apply always. Okay. we have to also look at the context, desha, kala. Fine. And also one's own role in a situation. Based on that only we know what is right and what is wrong for a particular person. That is called Vishesha Dharma. Now, Vishesha Dharma, how does the Vishesha Dharma come? Vishesha Dharma also is based on, again, Varna and Ashrama. What is your Varna? What is your Ashrama? Based on that, the Vishesha Dharma one has to arrive at. And if you are knowing the Vishesha Dharma and Samanya Dharma and still you do the wrong thing, means you are pressured to do the wrong thing. Why are you pressured? What is the pressure inside you? The pressure is coming from your own likes and dislikes. If your likes and dislikes and what is dharma and adharma are aligned, so whatever you like is the right thing. You like ice cream and the doctor has prescribed ice cream for you for whatever reason. Okay, let us say, I think at least when we were growing up, if somebody had a tonsils operation, the doctor will say you can have ice cream. So doctor prescribes ice cream, you like ice cream. Then no problem. You are dharmic. You can have how much ever ice cream you want. But most of the other times, what is the problem? Whatever you like is either illegal, immoral, or calorific. So there is a conflict between what you like and dislike and what is right and wrong. When such a conflict is there, what do you choose? Tells whether you are free or not. Are you free enough to do the right thing? Means you have freedom. Otherwise, you are only a slave of your likes and dislikes. You go and do adharma, then you are gaining more papa also. So whenever you do adharma and whenever you don't do dharma, what do you lose? That also you have to understand and assimilate. Once you assimilate that, once you know what the value of values, like that my guru say will normally he talks about that. All these values everybody knows, but you don't know the value of the value. That's why you are doing something wrong. So how do I know the value of value? If you assimilate these values and also see that how bad bargain it is, how much of a bad bargain it is when you do something wrong, then you have really assimilated the value of values. Because whenever you do the right thing, even though physically you may have put in a lot of effort, you may have lost your time and even some money and all that, you always feel good. So whenever you do something right, you feel good about yourself. That is because you are in harmony with dharma, which is nothing but a manifestation of Ishvara. Because Bhagavan for us is not sitting somewhere and judging you, correct? Bhagavan is manifest as all that is here. That's what we are seeing in this Purusha Sukta also. Whatever is there here, everything is Bhagavan. Means Bhagavan is manifest as the order, very order which is sustaining this universe. Whether it is physical order, chemical order, biological order, psychological order, physiological order, whatever, and moral order also, which we normally call as dharma. The moral order, what is right, what is wrong, is not separate from Bhagavan. Everything is Bhagavan. And whenever you do something right, you are in tune with Bhagavan, you are in harmony with Bhagavan. That's why you feel good. You feel good, you have a certain happiness, joy, satisfaction. In spite of other things, it is not easy to do the right thing many times, correct? But in spite of putting in some hard work, you feel good. But not only that, you will also gain punya, because according to our belief, every action has two results. There is a drishta phalam and adrishta phalam. Drishta phala is whatever you see and experience immediately. Adrishta phalam means unseen. Adrishta is not really luck, okay, wrongly translated as luck. Really, it is unseen result which is accruing to you, and it will also fructify later on as either pleasant or unpleasant experience. If you gain punya, it's going to fructify as pleasant experience. If you gain papa, it will fructify as unpleasant experience. So, whenever you do the right thing, drishta palam also is joy, satisfaction, feeling good. In fact, self-esteem also will go up. In your own judgment, whenever you do something right, you feel good about yourself. Your self-esteem goes up. And not only that, you are gaining punya, which will later on fructify as pleasant experience. But whenever you do something wrong, even though you may have, sometimes you may get whatever you want, even if you do something wrong, you may not get what you want also. Okay. And other than that, you are going to have fear. What if somebody finds out? What if somebody punishes me? Because if you do something wrong, you may be punished by the ruler or even other people. Then guilt will always be there. Even if nobody finds out you have done something wrong, you know you have done something wrong. That is good enough. Guilt will be there. At least for normal people, guilt will be there. Some people are brainwashed. Even theologically, they are brainwashed to do wrong things, so they may not feel guilt. They may even think they have done something meritorious. That's a different thing. But normally, whenever you do something wrong knowingly, you feel guilt also. Fear is there, guilt is there. And your self-esteem is gone because you know you have done something wrong. This is drishtapalam. But adrishtapalam, you are going to gain papa. This punya papa will always come with you. Understand that. Whatever you are gaining in this life, all that you have to live. When you die, you are not going to carry anything other than your own punya papa alone. Even as an individual, if you see, the only thing we carry with ourselves, all the wealth you gain, all the things which you gain in this life, everything you have to leave. You cannot take it with you. What are you going to take with yourself? The samskaras and punya and papa only, mainly. So it makes no sense to gain papa. So whenever you do something wrong, it's a very bad bargain. Both drishta phalam and adrishta phalam are not favorable to you. So why are you even doing that then? Because you have not assimilated how bad bargain it is. How bad a bargain it is, you have not assimilated. You have not assimilated the value of values. But once you assimilate that, then you get a certain. So what I was telling you is, we have to assimilate the value of values. We have to see how, whenever we do something wrong, it is both drishta phalam and adrishta phalam are not something which is favorable. That understanding has to go into you. That insight has to be thought about till your attitudes change and you have a certain freedom to do the right thing. So freedom is not freedom to do anything. Freedom means, are you free enough to do the right thing? That's how we have to look at it. If you are free enough to do the right thing, then you are a free person. You are not pressured by your likes and dislikes. That is very important. Now, why am I even talking about likes and dislikes? Because unless you overcome your likes and dislikes, you cannot know certain things. That is a prerequisite for you to know certain things, because the very fact that you are desiring something, what is the implication of that also you have to understand very clearly. The very fact that I am subjected to likes and dislikes, desires, implies that I am a wanting person, correct? I am lacking something. I think I lack something. I don't have something. I want something. Then, so you are a wanting person, means you are limited. But this limitation itself is something I cannot accept. That is the fundamental problem of everyone. What is the fundamental problem of a human being? I am limited. In whichever way I look at myself, I am limited. Am I able to accept all these limitations as my nature? Means no. Instinctively, I am always struggling to get rid of all these limitations. But only thing is my struggle and my effort is in the wrong direction. I am struggling to get things which I think I lack. But even after getting those things, I'm still the same limited being. Understand that. So in reality, what I am seeking is not something. Anything you gain is still a finite thing. You are still a limited person holding on to something finite. That's not going to make you free from your limitations. What I really seek is freedom from limitation, correct? Let me explain this with an analogy also. You will understand better. Let us say somebody got hurt, okay, on their legs. They had a fall or whatever. They tripped and fell down, hurt their leg. Now, what is the problem for this person? This person is not free to walk like he would normally walk, correct? He doesn't have the freedom to walk like what he used to walk. There is some restriction. He's not able to walk properly. So, what do you do? What is the solution? Give him a crutch. Okay. Now, first he gets a wooden crutch. Then let us say next he is getting a silver crutch. Next he is getting a golden crutch. But getting all these crutches is not solving the problem, right? You are still the same lame guy. You are not able to walk correctly. So your solution is not getting better and better crutches or more fancy crutches with decoration and all that. Let us say artistic crutches you get doesn't solve your problem. You want to walk on your own legs, correct? That's what you really want. You do not want better and better crutch. Like that, anything you achieve, any other thing you achieve, it's all only like crutches. It's not making you free. So how do I become free? Means there is only one way. You should be already the limitless, because limitless cannot be created or acquired newly. Then why do I not know that if I am already the limitless? Means that is ignorance. Now you have understood what is ignorance, correct? So you have to know, that's all. Knowledge. And the prerequisite for that knowledge is that you have to be free from your desires. You have to manage your desires. Your desire should not manage you. Why? Because by implication, desire is only reinforcing the fact that you are a wanting, limited, lacking person. But the vision of the Vedanta is you are not a wanting, limited person. The vision of the Vedanta is you are already the limitless. So the vision of Vedanta, whatever Vedanta is teaching, is totally opposite to a desiring person's idea about oneself. Correct? Any person with a desire, with a want, the basic premise there is that I am a wanting, limited individual. But Vedanta is giving a diametrically opposite vision. How can you have both? Unless you have a certain freedom to look at yourself differently, Vedanta will not work. That is why being free from your desires, you can still have preferences. Non-binding desire and all is coming out of your own fullness. Understand that. We are not talking about that. We are talking about binding desires. Binding desires means what? Unless I have something, I cannot be happy. That is binding desire. Or unless I get rid of something, I cannot be happy. This is a problem. In fact, that is why Bhagavan is talked about as the one who has Sarva Vairagya. The Bhaga, sixfold qualities are called Bhaga. Okay. So Sarva Aishwaryam, Sarva Yashas, Sarva Shri, Sarva Jnanam, Sarva Shakti. All these are talked about. But finally, Sarva Vairagya. Vairagya towards everything means what? Bhagavan cannot be Bhagavan if Bhagavan also says that only if this is there I'll be happy, or if this is there I cannot be happy and all that. So in Tamil also there is a beautiful way of talking about Bhagavan. In Tirukural also, Tiruvalluvar says, Vendudal Vendamai Iladan, like that. Vendudal Vendamai Iladan Adi Sendar Kallal, like that there is a Tirukural is there. So Vendudal Vendamai Iladan. Bhagavan is the one who does not think that I want this or I don't want that. Both are not there for Bhagavan. That's why he is Bhagavan. And we also have to be the same. That is the vision. You have to also understand that I don't really need anything to be happy. I am the source of all happiness. That is the vision. And to understand that vision, one has to be free from desires. And to be free from desires, you have to learn to do your duties in spite of your likes and dislikes. Now you understand how everything is linked. Unless you do your duties, keeping aside your likes and dislikes, you will not learn to manage your desires. Otherwise, your desires only will be managing you. And then how do I know what is my duty? Means Varna Ashrama also comes in. In the Varna Ashrama scheme, everybody knows their duties. As soon as you are born, you know what you have to do. It was a non-competitive society. So whether if you are a brahmachari, means your duties are fixed. If you are a grihastha, means your duties are fixed. Correct? Depending on ashrama also duties are there. Depending on varna also duties are there. Once duties are fixed means you have to do your duty. Doing your duty itself is archana to Bhagavan. And by doing your duties, you learn to manage your desires. You are successful. Once you learn to manage your desires, you can aspire for moksha. So that is the path here. I hope. So here we saw Bhagavan is everything. Bhagavan is manifest as the Chatur Varna also. All the Varna people are born from Bhagavan only. Understand? Everybody is divine. So here there is no problem really. I don't know. People see problem everywhere. It all depends on their attitude and how they look at it also. Anything can be looked at from some standpoint. So here, all these Chatur Varna are also born from the same Bhagavan. In fact, given an option, everybody will be only a Shudra. Everybody says that Shudra means something wrong, they think. Nowadays, what is happening? Given an option, no Brahmana wants to study Veda only. We are ready to start a Veda Patashala. We are not getting students for the last 2-3 years. That is the situation, correct? Because given an option, everybody wants to work for somebody else and be happy. Leading a Brahmana life is not really easy, in fact. Unless you make it, you compel in certain manners, people are not ready to take up Veda Adhyayanam only. So if Veda Adhyayanam had been made optional, Veda wouldn't have survived till now. Correct? Because it was looked upon as one's own duty and one has to study and all that. That's why people took it up all these years. Maybe again there may come a change in the society. People may look upon Veda Adhyanam, etc., as their one's own duty rather than going after money and career and all that. First, one has to learn one's Veda, and then everything else, whatever you want. That may come back again. I don't know. Maybe in our lifetime it may happen. It may after our lifetime also. But that is a possibility. But given an option, everybody wants to take the easy option is what? Working for others, earning some money. And they think they'll be happy because of that. But you have given up your duties. Swadharme nidhanam shreyaha. Bhagavan goes up to that level. He says, Even if you die, do your own dharma. Don't do something else. So that is something to be thought about. Anyway, so I hope why this Varna Srishti is important, you have to understand, because Varna Ashrama only, from that only we know what is our duty. And based on your duty, only your Swakarma, and doing your Swakarma only, you gain success. And from that success, in fact, you go to moksha and all that, other pursuits. So that is an important thing. Continuing here, Chandrama Manaso Jataha. So from this Purusha's mind came Chandrama, because Chandra or moon is connected to mind, correct? Even now we know that during full moon and new moon and all that, if you go to a mental hospital on a new moon, you have had it. So moon has an effect on one's mind that is well known to everyone. And moon also is something which nourishes, like that we look upon that. Kushnami chaushadhi sarvaha somo bhutva rasatmakaha, like that Bhagavan says in the 15th chapter. Okay. So I nourish all the aushadhi, being the soma. Like that Bhagavan says, Soma Devata, moon. So Chandati iti Chandra. Okay, if you look at the Vyutpatti, Chandati means it has a meaning of shining and all that. And Ma means, Ma can be looked upon as Lakshmi or some glory, correct? So the one who is shining gloriously is Chandrama. And this Chandrama, born of the mind of this Purusha. And the Chandrama itself is the Devata for mind then, okay? Because all our minds are all the Adhisthana Devata, because everything is a phenomenon. So how do we understand Devata and Bhagavan? See, Bhagavan is the one who is manifest as everything here. That is coming out very clearly. But even in this, each phenomenon if you take, there is a individual manifestation of that phenomenon, correct? Sight, if you take, means what is the individual manifestation of sight? Your eyes. Your eyes are a manifestation of sight. Every eyes, all the eyes see, correct? Whether it is human eye, animal eye. And when you look at it as sight, as an abstract phenomenon, it is totality, correct? It is a total. That is represented by a Devata. Do you understand now? So whenever we have a phenomenon, there is always individual instances of that, individual manifest instances. In fact, those who have done programming also can understand, correct? There is always a class, there is an object. Class is nothing but an abstraction of an object. Or jati vyakti, we can say simply. A species, jati is an abstraction, correct? And then vyakti is the individual. So there is a genus or a class to which everybody belongs. So the abstraction is totality. And that is nothing but Bhagavan only. But Bhagavan looked at through that particular abstraction or phenomenon is a Devata. So that's why we have Devata for everything. Mind means the Devata for mind is Chandrama. Chaksho, Suryo, Ajayata. From the eyes came Surya. Again, Surya, without Surya you cannot see, eyes cannot see, correct? Even though eyes are there, if there is no light, you can't see anything. So Surya is required. Surya Devata only makes vision possible. And Surya Devata, from the, if you look upon vision itself as a phenomenon, Surya is the Devata. Understand that. Aditya Devata. That's why we have specific prayers, we have general prayers also. If you have a specific problem, you can pray to a specific Devata. If you have eye problems, pray to Aditya. You chant Aditya Hridayam. Like that, we have specific things are there. Understand? Mukhadindraschagnischa. So from the Mukha came Indra and Agni. So from the mouth, Indra and Agni came. Agni also, speech is, Agni is the Devata of speech. Okay, so he came from the mouth. Very relevant. And Mukha, Indra also came because Indra is a very important Devata, so he came from the mouth of this Purusha. Speech also, see why Agni is the Devata of speech. My guru used to say very interestingly, because Agni can give both heat and light, it seems. Similarly, my Guruji used to say, your speech can make somebody very hot and angry. It can give heat or it can enlighten somebody. It can give light. So he used to say, make sure that your speech always enlightens rather than making somebody hot. Like that. So Agni can give both heat and light. Similarly, speech also can give both heat and light. So Agni can be the Devata of speech, correct? And Pranad Vayurajayata. So from the Prana of this Purusha, Vayu. So from this, what do we understand? All the Pancha Mahabhutas are nothing but this Purusha only. Because we have this 5 elemental model of creation, correct? Everything in the creation is nothing but these 5 elements. Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apa, Prithvi. So here you can see all these 5 elements. In fact, next, Nabhya, Asid, Antariksham. The Nabhi of this Purusha is the Antariksha, space. Shirshnodyau Samavartata. Head is the whatever, Dyau Lokaha, Swarga Loka. Padbhyam Bhumirdisha Shrotraat. And Pada is Bhumi of this Purusha. And his Shrotra is all the directions came from all the Shrotras, ears. Because ears, through ear only you hear sound. Sound means space, Akasha. Okay. Shabda Gunakaha, Akashaha. Akasha as the Shabda as the main quality associated with that. And therefore, from the ears came all this dik or direction or space again, dishas. So like this, Tatha Lokagum Akalpayan. So all these lokas were visualized or created like this. So from this, what do we understand? All the Pancha Bhutas are from this Purusha or Bhagavan only. Bhagavan alone is manifest as these Pancha Bhutas. Now that is what is said, that is there Pratyaksha, correct? We have Panchabhuta Sthala also. So we have this Ekambreshwara temple in Kanchi. It's a Prithvi Sthala. Then you go to Jambukeshwara, Tiruvanaikovil, near Tiruchi. Jambukeshwara is there. That is the Apsthala. Correct? Water. Then Tiruvannamalai you go. That is the Agni Sthala. That's why we have Kartikai Deepam and all that. There Bhagavan is in the form of Jyoti, Agni itself. That hill itself is a representation of Agni. On top of that hill we make this Jyoti. So Bhagavan is Agni Rupa, Tiruvannamalai. Then you go to Kalahasti. There Bhagavan is Vayu. So in the Kalahasti temple, they always have one lamp within the Garbhagriha, which is always like, it's not all lamp, normally all flame anyway, it will have a certain movement, but that movement is so pronounced there. So that is the representation of Vayu even in the Garbhagriha. And of course, Chidambara Rahasyam. You go to Chidambara, there Bhagavan is worshipped as space. That is Chidambara Rahasya. Because in Chidambara Rahasya, you have a garland which is just hanging without. Normally, we put the garland on some murti, correct? But here, garland is just hanging in space. Means the garland itself is for space only, because Bhagavan is space there. So Panchabhuta Sthala we have, and Bhagavan only is all the Panchabhutas. Bhagavan is manifest as all the Panchabhutas. We have to understand that. In fact, if you understand that, you only see Bhagavan then. You don't see the Panchabhutas. If you see it as Panchabhutas, you are only seeing the differentiated world. So this again is very beautifully said in one Tamil verses there. There is a Tirumandiram. One book is there by Tirumular. Tirumular is one of the 63 Nayanmars or saints from Tamil Nadu. He wrote a book, Tirumandiram, which is like a very beautiful book. Both yoga, Vedanta, everything is there in that. So in that he says, Marattai Maraitadu Mamada Yanai. Marattil Maraindadu Mamada Yanai. Parattai Maraitadu Parmudal Bhutam. Parattil Maraindadu Parmudal Bhutam. So what is the meaning of this? He says, the ferocious elephant covered the wood, it seems. That means what? There is a wooden sculpture of a ferocious elephant. Now, you don't know that it is only a sculpture. So you came from somewhere and suddenly saw there's a huge elephant standing there. What is your reaction? You are ready to run now because you think the elephant is going to attack you. So you have fear. That means if you look at it as elephant, the wood is not seen, correct? Wood has been covered by the elephant. But if somebody points out, hey, don't run, this is only wood. If you are seeing the wood, there is no more elephant there. Only wood is there. The elephant has vanished into the wood, correct? Marattil maraindadu ma madayanai. The ferocious elephant has now vanished within the wood. Similarly, you see this entire world as separate objects, as all these Panchabhutas, means you have only fear. Because you are so small, world is so big. Always you are struggling because you are seeing everything separately. But whatever is there here is nothing but Bhagavan, including your body, mind, sense complex. Understand that. Don't see the problem with most people is they'll say everything is Bhagavan and then you leave out yourself. Even if everything is Bhagavan and you leave out yourself, you will have only fear. How do we know that? You take Bhagavad Gita 11th chapter. Bhagavan is giving a Vishwarupa Darshana, correct? Where Arjuna is seeing Bhagavan as everything. But the problem is he left himself out of that Vishwarupa. So he says he has fear. In fact, he says, Bhagavan, your Vishwarupa is enough. Now show me your Saumyam Rupam. Like that he says in the end. What is the meaning of that, or what do you understand from that is, even if Bhagavan shows the Vishwarupa Darshana, if you leave yourself out of that, you will only have fear. So you are not, your body, mind, sense complex also is included in whatever is there here. Whatever Bhagavan alone is manifest as everything means you are also included in that. And you see only Bhagavan everywhere means all these Panchabhutas are not there anymore. They all vanish into Bhagavan, the Param. Parattil Maraindadu Par Mudal Bhutam. Like this. That's what we have to have, this vision. This entire Purusha Sukta is about having this vision that all that is here is nothing but Bhagavan. All the lokas are Bhagavan. Bhu, Goha, Swaha, 7 up, 7 down. Starting from Akasha, So tasmad etasmad atmanaha akasha sambhutaha. Akasha itself came from this Atma only. Space time, everything, whatever is there here is nothing but Bhagavan. That is the vision. So that's why my guru used to say, we don't say there are many gods. We don't say there is one God. Our vision is that there is only God. Only God or only Bhagavan alone is there here. Bhagavan is the one who is manifest as everything. Everything is really only an appearance. Understand that. It's all names and forms. If you analyze it, what is there is only Bhagavan. Bhagavan alone is there. That is our vision. And Bhagavan alone is there means you are that Bhagavan finally, because you are the only conscious entity. Bhagavan also is conscious entity. And you as a conscious being is the limitless conscious being who is the basis for whatever is appearing here as this world. That is what is to be understood. And if you understand that, then you are free from all fear, death, everything. In fact, that is the next one. Next verse is beautiful about knowing this Bhagavan, and then you become free from all ignorance and you get Amritattvam here itself. Okay, so that we'll see next week. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
धन्यवाद गुरुजी.
धन्यवाद गुरुजी.